Do you ever feel overwhelmed by the ever-changing world of technology? Tech It Out can help make some sense of it all. Breaking down geek speak into street speak, technology columnist, author, and TV personality Mark Saltzman covers consumer technology each week for every listener. Mark tackles the latest news, reviews, and how-tos to help you understand what's hot, what's not, and why.
Hey everyone, welcome to Tech It Out, episode 432. This weekly radio show and podcast is powered by Visa and Norton, two brands that protect you in different ways, but we'll get to that shortly. I trust you're all doing well, having a good day, I hope, and thank you for making Tech It Out a small part of it. As the announcer says, my goal on this program is to help break down geek speak into street speak. We have three great guests on the show this hour. We're going to kick things off with Splashtop, which has free software that lets you log into your PC or Mac from another device anywhere in the world and see and control it as if you were sitting in front of your computer. After that, Visa, as I mentioned, a partner of mine on this show, will join us to talk about romance scams, a timely chat given that it's mid-February, often a month associated with love, but there are those looking to win your money and not your heart. And so we'll talk about what's new and how to fight back. And finally, an AI-powered canvas for your wall that lets you use your voice to ask for what you want to see, and the frame will generate it on demand. It's wild. From a company called Fraimic. All of this and more on a brand new Tech It Out. So let's kick things off with our first interview. Whenever I get a new laptop or desktop, when I'm starting from scratch to set it all up just right for me, there's a couple of things I first install on that new PC. Norton 360 for protection, cybersecurity, my Audacity audio software so I can record and edit interviews for the show that you're listening to, Microsoft 365 for email and word processing, and I always put Splashtop Personal on my computer and other devices. So what is Splashtop? To explain, we're joined on the line by co-founder and chief technical officer at the company, Sheu. Thanks for your time, Phil. Good to talk to you.
Hi, Mark. Thanks so much for having me on. It's always such a pleasure to meet users of our product.
As you heard in my introduction, I don't think you knew I was a user. I am a big fan of the software. I've been using it for several years now. So with that in mind, why don't we start there at a high level? What is Splashtop?
We built Splashtop to let users access their computers from anywhere. And by access, it means you actually see what's on the screen and being able to control it just as if you were sitting in front of it. And so you see the full desktop. You can launch any program you want. You can control the mouse and keyboard just as if you were there. On top of that, what we really try to do is make the video and audio feel just as if you were live right there. So the same resolution, the same colors, the same text sharpness, and the same responsiveness. And of course, there's going to be a little bit of lag if you're really far from your computer, but we try really hard to make it look and sound and interact just as if you were right there in front of your computer.
All right, great. So this is, I think, referred to as remote desktop software.
Yes.
There are other companies, but to your point, Splashtop not only lets you log into your PC from somewhere else on any device that's on the internet virtually that you can install Splashtop software on, but it's really great when it comes to streaming media. So you may be on a business trip, and instead of paying the hotel through the nose for watching a movie, if you have content on your computer at home and you've got free Wi-Fi in the hotel, which is pretty standard these days, you can actually watch the show on your laptop, or with a HDMI cable from the dollar store, you can connect it to the hotel TV and stream it as if you had the movie with you locally. That is one application. Another one, Philip, is that I help my mom, who is 86, with her computer all the time. It's very convenient for me, even when I'm traveling, to be able to log into her computer with her consent, naturally. And she is watching me fix her issue. She's watching the mouse cursor move across the screen. So I'm in control of her computer as if I was there beside her. That's really wild stuff. That's really what we're talking about here.
Great. Yeah. I think you've really nailed the two main use cases of Splashtop, and those are actually two phases in our company. So initially, being able to stream media really well, that was our very first phase. We had this technology that worked really fast and presented everything on the screen as is, and we weren't quite sure what people would start using it for. And It was around the time that iPads came out and people loved their iPads, but on their PCs, they still had their gigabytes of HD movies, their MP3s, they had their first-person shooter games, World of Warcraft, and all those were not on iPad App Store at the time. So we realized, wow, the people who were downloading our app off the App Store were using it for those things. They were streaming videos and just watching remotely, like what you said, on a business trip or personal trip. And then we started growing into our second phase, the remote support that you mentioned with your mom. It was more the professional IT who needed a remote desktop for work, as in maybe an IT department that needs to help employees out with their computers that were having problems. And instead of walking over across a big corporate campus or driving over to a different branch, they would use a remote desktop like Splashtop to the IT can sit in his office and go fix any issue on any computer anywhere in the world.
Yeah, awesome. Can you just walk our listeners through how it works? So again, the company's called Splashtop. The software, there's different versions. We'll get to some of that. I already hinted that I use the personal version for individuals. But if you can just at a high level explain what you need. Like if I'm not mistaken, there's two parts to the software. There's the software that you need to log into the device, like your iPhone app or iPad, as you mentioned, or a Windows PC, for example. And then you have the software that's installed on that machine, because I had to install it first on my mom's computer, just once. Can you walk us through that process?
Yeah, exactly. As you said, for the computers that you want to be able to remote into, there's a piece of Splashtop software that you install. So maybe it's your home Mac computer or your Windows computer at work. There's a piece of Splashtop software you install. And then once you do that, any device that you want to remote from, so it could be your iPhone, could be a tablet, could be a bunch of other computers, you install this other Splashtop app. And that app is available in the App Store. Then basically on any device, you can launch our Splashtop app. That could be our Splashtop personal app, our Splashtop business app, and then go remote control your home computer, your work computer, and so forth.
And the first time you do it, you need to have the right password, right? Security is really important because you don't want someone accessing your computer that's unauthorized, obviously. So when I installed it on my mom's PC, obviously I know how to connect it because I did both. So that's key, right? Not anybody can just log in.
Yeah, right. So we take security very seriously. Each Splashtop software that you install, there is a Splashtop ID that you create along with a password. And the password, it has to be of a certain length and complexity. And we also encourage all of our users to turn around 2FA, the two-factor authentication that maybe more and more of your listeners do for their banking sites. So using your phone number to authenticate the login. And then I think Mark previously touched on perhaps if you're helping someone remoting to their computer, that person has to approve your incoming connection. So there's a series of security measures.
That's great. We are chatting with Phil Sheu. He is CTO and co-founder of Splashtop, a company that has software that lets you log in from one device into another and then see and control it as if you were there in person. Super handy on several levels. We've discussed many applications for it. Let's hear what's new for 2026, Phil.
We have some pretty exciting IT-oriented features. We are certainly being adopted by more and more bigger companies, Fortune 500s, that your listeners are probably familiar with. But I think our true passion goes back to our roots of making the experience feel really smooth, just as if you were there. So there are lots of engineering work that we do. That's not really, a feature checklist we can talk about, by just reducing the latency by a couple tenths of milliseconds, or making the text a bit sharper coming through the remote side. And so we are introducing a new AI optimized codec that helps achieve a couple of those things, helping to make the text a bit sharper when it matters. Let's say you're on a business trip and you pulled up a document that's on your home computer. We want it to look just as sharp as your Retina screen at home. And we also know that, well, even as good as Wi-Fi is nowadays, like when Mark is accessing Splashtop from the airplane, or what I did last year, going on a cruise in Mediterranean. And of course, the cruise network is very spotty. So even with poor network conditions, they'll still happen.
Yeah.
Use as little bandwidth as we can in order to deliver similar fast experience.
Yeah, I find the connection very smooth. I love the interface, Phil, where you can choose, as you said earlier, that you can swap between like a digital keyboard or a mouse cursor. It's all in the bottom right of the screen. It's just super easy to use. You can also drag the look of the screen. Like if you're on an iPhone and you're trying to access a larger device like a desktop PC, you may have to move around to see that the files and the folders are all accessible in the app icons. Very simple. So I like that because you don't need to be tech savvy to use Splashtop. So let's wrap up then with how to get going. Again, there's the consumer version or the non-commercial use version that I use, Splashtop Personal. There's business versions. Is that right? How do we get going right now?
Yeah, so for consumers, the easiest way to get going is go to the App Store. So whether you're on Android or Apple device, both the Apple App Store and Google Play, our app is in there. Search for Splashtop, and it is free to get started. The app is called Splashtop Personal, free to use to access your computers if they're on the same network. And then there is a small subscription to access from anywhere in the world. Then our servers will help relay the connection from anywhere.
And then for Windows and Mac, you can also go to splashtop.com and download the desktop software.
Yep, thank you.
All right, great. Again, Splashtop is just one word, just as it sounds. Philip Sheu, CTO of Splashtop. Keep up the great work. Good to talk to you. Thanks again.
Mark, thank you very much.
Hey, when we return on Tech It Out, we're going to catch up with Visa to discuss romance scams. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Listen to Tech It Out whenever you want. Find the Tech It Out podcast at iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Tech It Out. Valentine's Day is supposed to be a day to open your heart, except it's also a time when cybercriminals are tricking you into opening your wallet. The scammers prey on those looking for love and companionship on dating apps and sites and exploit those hopes for financial gain. To tell us more about romance scams and what's new this year and how to fight back, we're joined by Dan Munson at Visa. He's Senior Director of Global Payment Ecosystem Risk and Control. Good to have you back on the show, Dan. Nice to talk to you again.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I appreciate the invitation. It's great to be with you again.
Great. So obviously Valentine's Day is here. Before we talk about romance scams, though, please tell us a bit about Visa's efforts to fighting back against fraud. It's to the tune of billions of dollars, billions with a B. I think listeners may be surprised to learn that.
Yeah, that's correct. Actually, over the past 5 years, Visa's invested over $13 billion every year on technology and infrastructure. So a lot of this includes a pretty heavy focus on fraud and security. And really, our goal here is to keep the digital economy moving safely. That investment also goes into technology. It goes into data, making sure we have the right data in the right places and the infrastructure to support that data. And really, most importantly, it goes into our people. And these people are really focused on stopping fraud before it reaches consumer. So our goal isn't just stopping those bad transactions either. It's a lot broader than that. We're also very focused on protecting trust. We want people to feel confident about paying digitally and using Visa credentials everywhere.
Yeah.
And because Visa sits at the center of global commerce, we really have an advantage in that we can see patterns and threats forming early. And that enables us to build processes, technology, and programs to get ahead of those threats. One really good recent example of this is our Visa scam disruption practice. This has already helped detect about $1.6 billion in suspected scam transactions. And this is just since the practice first launched in August of 2024. We've also identified over 25,000 suspected scam merchants that are associated with the $1.6 billion in scam transactions. And we work with our ecosystem partners to disrupt those scam campaigns.
Wow. All right. So that's a huge investment to protecting consumers and businesses alike. All right. So let's now talk specifically about romance scams. So that's one way fraudsters are trying to part us and our money. What is a romance scam exactly? Is this the same as a catfishing scam?
Yeah, catfishing is certainly one flavor of romance scams. I think what we're seeing across the ecosystem actually goes a step further. We're really seeing these scammers focused on building an emotional connection with their victims and then exploiting that connection for money. We're seeing these scammers create fake profiles on dating apps and social media platforms with the goal of gaining trust, right? They want to gain the trust of their victims, and then they manufacture some type of reason that the victim they've connected with and built that connection with and that trust with needs to send money. This can be anything from, there's a family emergency. Maybe that scammer is claiming they don't have the funds to come and visit you in person, right? They want to come see you. They want to take a flight and meet you in person, but they don't have the funds. So they need your help to do that. Or in some extreme cases, we're seeing the scammers say they are in physical danger, right? Maybe they're in a housing environment or some type of situation that requires your funding to help remove them from that dangerous situation. Really, what I think makes these scams especially painful as well is not just the financial harm, right? That's certainly a component of it, but it's also that emotional toll that it takes on the victims. I've had the privilege to hear directly from a lot of these romance scam victims, and it's striking just how incredibly intelligent, successful, how kind these people are. And I think what really resonates and sticks with me is just that emotional toll, which is often much more impactful than the money they lost in these scams. It also shows, this can really happen to anyone. These scammers they're incredibly skilled. They know exactly what to say. They know how to build that trust with their victims, and they know when and how to exploit it.
It boils my blood because, it's preying on those who are vulnerable. These fraudsters are very slick. And there was a recent Norton study that found that even when people realize they're getting scammed, sometimes they just want the attention. They're super lonely. Yeah. I also read that in Visa's research, your Visa scam disruption team that you mentioned earlier, they uncovered a romance scheme that reveals just how widespread and organized this fraud has become, right? It's not just a lone scammer now trying to get one person hooked.
Absolutely. Yeah. These scams are not just one person. We're seeing very well organized networks, and these networks are operating at scale. One scheme that we actually uncovered involved dozens, and really it's probably closer to hundreds of fake dating websites that looked professional. They were entirely convincing, very well designed, and the goal here was to attract the victims onto those platforms, onto those websites, and get the victim to subscribe to the dating service. Once those victims were subscribed, the scammer would then funnel those victims into payment traps. I think the most common one we were seeing in this case was something like recurring billing charges. And those charges were impossible to get out of, right? It'd be something like a $10.99 charge that you're seeing every month on your credit card statement. And despite every effort, you can't find a contact number. You can't find any information about anyone to help you get out of this. And it can be very, very frustrating. What was interesting in this case, too, is the scammers actually owned and operated much of the billing infrastructure as well as the websites, right? And I think this really shows that it's not just a single scammer. It's a very well coordinated operation. They have a vast amount of technology, automation, and even the infrastructure behind it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I would think that in 2026, the romance scam has not just expanded and become more well organized, as you've touched on, but it seems that AI is playing a role too. I know we've heard about deep fakes. Is that one of the examples of how AI is a tool that these cybercriminals are leveraging? Dan Munson from Visa will answer that when we return on Tech It Out. Sorry to leave you hanging. We'll be right back. Stick with us. Don't touch that dial.
Want to follow Mark? Google him. Mark with a C and Saltzman with a Z. Breaking down geek speak into street speak. This is Tech It Out. Tech It Out with technology columnist, author, and TV personality Mark Saltzman.
Welcome back to Tech It Out. Before we continue on with Visa and learn more about romance scams, I wanted to first give a shout out to Norton, a new partner of ours on Tech It Out. In today's connected world, a simple antivirus just isn't enough. Your identity, your finances, and your privacy are all on the line. That's why you need Norton 360 with LifeLock, the comprehensive solution that bundles device security and identity theft protection. Tech It Out has proudly partnered with Norton as they protect your PC, Mac, and mobile devices from a myriad of threats. Get the all-in-one peace of mind with Norton 360 with LifeLock. Head on over to norton.com/techitout for a great deal on a subscription service. Again, that's norton.com/techitout Tech It Out. We are chatting with Dan Munson at Visa, Senior Director of Global Payment Ecosystem Risk and Control. We're talking romance scams. Before the break, Dan, I was asking you about AI making things worse for potential victims right now, right? Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, AI is changing the game, and I don't think that can be overstated at this point. The scammers, when we're investigating, we're seeing they can generate very convincing photos, these deep fake photos. They can create profiles with significant ease, right? And a lot of these profiles that are popping up on dating websites and platforms can be completely fake, and they look very convincing due to the use of AI technology. We're even seeing that the conversations that these scammers are having with their victims are occurring through AI technology, right? They can actually embed something like a generative AI and an LLM on top of their website. And instead of the scammer having to engage and kind of communicate directly with their victim, they can basically outsource that to AI now. So this type of automation is allowing the scammers to engage multiple victims at once, right? It's much more scalable because now they're kind of automating and outsourcing a lot of this activity to technology like AI.
And I will ask you, of course, in a moment, how we can fight back. It would be remiss not to discuss ways that we can safeguard ourselves. Even a seemingly innocent or quote unquote accidental text message could lead to fraud. I know that one tactic these days, Dan, I'm sure you've seen those text messages that look like they were sent in error, like, hey, are we still good for 3 p.m. today? And then the potential victim would write back and say, oh, wrong number, you got the wrong person. And then they build your trust over time. You develop a friendship and perhaps a relationship over time through text message, and then they get you like, hey, I need money, and leading to one of those examples that you gave earlier. So yeah, a seemingly innocent text like that is really a scam in waiting. Mm-hmm. And even more troubling, perhaps, many victims will pay a scammer. That's bad enough. But then the victim's payment details are stolen too. I think you said something earlier about they control the website and the payment process as well. I'm paraphrasing here. Is that a risk as well, that once you pay even once, it may not even be done yet? You still may be in for more of a surprise?
Unfortunately, yeah, that's very accurate. We are seeing in some of these scams and some of these schemes that once a victim makes that payment, their card details are captured and reused. And you said, earlier, Mark, you were alluding to the romance scam that we had uncovered on those dating platforms. That's a really good example where, the victim thought they were subscribing to this service, their card details, right, their payment details are then stolen and enrolled in all of these recurring billing charges. So after the victim falls for this scam, they do often start seeing those charges from merchants they don't recognize. And what's interesting too, sometimes that occurs long after the victim thought the issue was resolved.
Yeah.
Set up purchase alerts. Right? Put up purchase alerts for your credit and debit accounts. Make sure you're getting a notification anytime a transaction occurs. And this will enable you to identify those suspicious transactions and then report them and really mitigate the issue.
Any other tips that you can recommend? Just tell people to have like a zero trust attitude, like just ignore everything. Again, because a lot of these romance scams, the efforts to meet somebody may have been initiated by the victim, and so I don't even know what advice to give here. So perhaps you can help from your vantage point.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think first and foremost, what we say across all scams is if something feels too good to be true, it usually is. It doesn't matter if that's a deal on a TV, right? You find a $1,000 TV for $10, or if it's a date, right? If it's a connection on one of these dating platforms, if something feels too good to be true, it usually is. And I think that's a good point to, kind of step back and assess it objectively. There are other things you can do to protect yourself, right? I think one of the biggest red flags in a lot of these romance scams is being asked for money by someone you've never met in person. And it really doesn't matter how long you've been talking with this individual. That's their whole goal. They want to build trust. They want to build connection. So even if you're completely convinced you've been talking to this person for, a year even, right? If they ask you for money and you've never met them in person, definitely take a step back and kind of second guess that, right? Try and view that objective. Pressure is definitely another warning sign. If there's any type of urgency to make the payment, if there's a deadline to the payment, if there's any type of emotional manipulation, like family emergency, as we mentioned earlier. Also, if you're starting the connection with an individual on a trusted platform, so you're using a well-established dating application or website or whatever it might be, if that connection you make tries to move you off of that platform, that's a red flag, right? These platforms, there's protections inherent within those platforms, so the scammers want to move you off of those as quickly as they can. Also, if this connection, avoids video calls, or if they are rushing intimacy and it just feels too artificial and rushed, I think these are all good signals to pause and try and kind of take stock of your situation. The last thing I'll say too, Mark, is just, I think one of the best things people can do is ask a trusted person to objectively come in and review your situation and provide advice. You mentioned earlier, sometimes we get so caught up in a relationship that we fail to see the red flags, right? And as you said, maybe you even initiated this connection in the first place, right? And there's that kind of inherent trust when you're making the first move, so to speak. I think always take a step back, ask a family member, ask a friend, ask another trusted contact to just come in and review your situation and give objective advice. And I think that goes a really long way in helping prevent a lot of these scams.
All great advice, Dan. I was going to add that if you become a victim, report it to the authorities as well with as much information as you can. Even though you may be embarrassed, you're certainly not alone. This has happened countless times, and the scammers are getting more tools in their arsenal like AI. Thank you so much, Dan. It's been great chatting with you. Eye-opening and disturbing, unfortunately, but really important discussion. Thanks again for your time and expertise.
Of course, Mark. Always great talking to you. Thank you.
Hey, don't forget, we're going to chat with Fraimic AI. Speaking of AI, after this short break, this is a smart canvas for your wall that leverages generative AI. So you just walk up to it, touch it, and say what you want to see, and it will generate an image for you from scratch. Wild stuff. And so stay tuned for that. You're listening to Tech It Out. I'm your host, Mark Saltzman. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Breaking down geek speak into street speak. Tech It Out, hosted by Mark Saltzman.
Welcome back to Tech It Out. This next topic is mind-blowing. Imagine a canvas on your wall at home, and instead of displaying the same artwork day in and day out, you can walk up to it and use your voice to ask for something new, created for you right there on the spot. The company Fraimic made a splash at the recent Consumer Electronics Show, now just referred to as CES, where Fraimic's AI-powered tech generated a ton of buzz. Joining us to tell us all about its quote-unquote art that listens is the company founder, Anthony Mattana. Hi, Anthony. Thanks for your time today.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me.
I was eager to have you on the show coming out of CES. I wrote about Fraimic for a couple of publications and shared the news and videos online, and I got a lot of engagement on that because it's really crazy technology. So I did tease what your products can do in my short introduction. But please tell us, first at a high level, what is Fraimic's e-ink Smart Canvas, or canvases, all about? I think you've got two models.
Yeah, I mean, that was a fantastic description just to start. So thanks for kicking it off. I think the easiest way to digest what Fraimic is I like to think of it as the next generation of the digital picture frame. Everything that a digital picture frame does, but without all the drawbacks that come with those. So with the digital picture frame, you've got an LED or an LCD backlit display, and it's really bright and it emits blue light, and you can't really ever turn it off. Also, they don't have great battery. You have to plug them in or keep them into an outlet all the time. And you're sort of tied to USB sticks or mobile apps that allow you to kind of update to it. So it's a bit of a dated tech for doing something that people really love, which is, changing art or changing images in your home. Mm-hmm. So what Fraimic does is it brings new technology into the mix. It's powered by e-ink, not an LCD display. And what's beautiful about e-ink is that it's in full color and it looks like ink on paper. There's no backlit, there's no LCD blue light, and it reflects light naturally the way a painting does or a framed photograph, not in a digital picture frame. The other beauty about e-ink is that it will last a really long time on a single charge. The frame only uses battery when you change the image, meaning if you were to change the image on this device once a day, every day, it would last up to 3 years on a single charge.
All right. Now, this e-ink technology, which is in many e-readers, is the same idea. When it goes to sleep, it's got a static image. Usually it's the book cover. But in this case, it's a, 13 or 30 odd inch canvas on your wall. And it's the same idea.
Yeah, we've packaged it into an art frame. So you have this mat surrounding this display that produces a 14-inch by 18-inch canvas and a 24-inch by 36-inch canvas.
Thanks for the clarification.
The reason we created the canvases in those sizes is because you can pop Fraimic Smart Canvas into any frame you desire. It does come with a picture frame, but you can use any frame that you may purchase off Amazon or any store and put into it. So it's going to work like your digital picture frame. You're going to upload any images or photos that you might want to, like any other. But what's really special about Fraimic and our sort of claim to fame is our voice to vision technology. So within the mat that surrounds the display on Fraimic are touch capacitive sensors. All you got to do is tap it, tell Fraimic what you want to see, tap it again, and Fraimic is going to create that image. The product is powered by OpenAI, so it takes that recording, translates it to text, makes an image from it, brings it back, and displays it simply and instantly right on your frame without you having to do any sign-on or mobile app or account or anything like that.
This sounds like science fiction, but you're saying you can walk up to it, tap the frame, and then use your voice to describe the kind of picture you want to see. Like, show me a field of sunflowers with a red barn in the background and make it around the golden hour, let's say. And it will create that image for you. And if you don't like it, you can just ask for something different.
That's totally correct. And if you look at any of our videos online or our YouTube channel, you can see all different types of examples that people have sort of asked Fraimic to create. Think of it as like digital signage too. You want to make a welcome home note for grandma when she comes home. You want to create like a story with your kid at story time. Anything you think of, you can see.
Awesome. All right. And thanks for clarifying the two different sizes that are available. You touched on first about the wireless part. So there's no plug for the wall, unlike many other digital photo frames, if not all of them. So you just hang it, and it could last up to 3 years, presuming that's the smaller one. Is that right?
Yeah, both of them will last up to 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Now, there is a USB-C port on the back of the frame that connects to a rechargeable battery. So it's not just like it dies after 3 years.
Yeah.
It's actually just the battery needs a recharge. You plug it in for 45 minutes and you got another 3 years of use out of it.
Wow. Amazing. All right. So for our listeners, it's Fraimic, Fraimic. We are chatting with Anthony Mattana. He is the founder of the company, about to release 2 smart canvases that leverage AI to create an image for you by you simply describing it verbally. Unlike other companies that have these kinds of smart canvases, Fraimic AI does not require a subscription. They let you swap out the surrounding frame, as you heard Anthony say, and they don't require an app to upload the art. The onboard accelerometer even knows whether the device is in landscape or portrait orientation and will apply the correct format. That's pretty cool. So you can hang it horizontally or vertically.
Totally. Yeah. And the idea here is for you to be able to interact with this without having to unlock your phone or grab your computer. There's so much that's tied to these devices when we want to use these smart home products that what's amazing about Fraimic is no matter which way it's oriented, no matter which room it's in, it's just going to create.
We're going to learn more about Fraimic Smart AI canvases when we return on Tech It Out. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Follow Mark Saltzman on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Listen to Tech It Out whenever you want.
A couple of minutes left with Anthony Mattana, founder of the company Fraimic, which has an AI-powered smart canvas for your wall. You could just use your voice to ask for something to see, and the frame creates it for you on demand. Now, you can upload your own photos as well if you want, right? Like you have your favorite pictures of your kids or a photo that you took of a recent vacation that you want on your wall.
Totally.
You can also do that, and that would be handled through the app?
So no mobile app, just a simple website.
Okay.
And we want that so that, no matter what device you're working on, if grandma doesn't have a smartphone or kids don't have access to a smartphone, you could just load the site from your iPad or your desktop. As long as the device is connected to the same Wi-Fi that Fraimic is on, you'll just load the site, select what you want from your computer or your phone, and hit send.
Is there a limit to how many photos you can store on there? Is there internal memory?
So nothing gets stored on the device itself, and that's why we do have the website. So every image that you sort of draw through there, or every voice to vision that you create, is stored under a My Gallery section on the website. So anything that you've uploaded or created in the past, you can go to your gallery from the web app and select it again to send back. The other really great thing about it is that if you upload funny scenario, upload a photo of you and your girlfriend, and you've got your photo on the frame, because it's powered by OpenAI, just like you can with other AI image editing tools. Let's say you and your girlfriend break up. You can just ask Fraimic to remove your ex-girlfriend.
That's hilarious. Yeah. That's great. I love that. But let's clarify, this isn't really meant to be a slideshow based photo frame. Is that fair? Because I think it takes a couple of seconds for it to load. That's just the e-ink technology, right?
It does. And that's a great clarification. Thanks, Mark. The refresh time to sort of show a new image is about 10 to 15 seconds. And that's because literal digital e-ink filaments are being printed on this to display this in this ink-like quality. Now, we do have a function through the website where you can schedule slideshows, basically, of your photos or of pieces of art. You just can't expect it to kind of shift to the image right away. It takes a few seconds of processing to shift over. But we do have customers that do want slideshows of art, and you can do that.
Speaking of art, Anthony, can you ask for a famous artist's work to appear? Like, can you say, show me a Van Gogh?
Yeah, it's a great question. So because Fraimic is powered by OpenAI, you are essentially protected and limited by the same usage limits that OpenAI serves when you're trying to create an image with ChatGPT. If you're on your computer with ChatGPT and you ask for a piece of copyrighted work or illegal work or harmful work, ChatGPT is not going to produce it. So the same thing happens with Fraimic, because Fraimic is using OpenAI. So if you ask it to do one of those things and it didn't work on a PC, it's not going to work on Fraimic.
What if, though, you really like Starry Night by Van Gogh, just to stick with that example, all right, that 1889 Impressionist painting. Is there anything stopping you if you have a photo of that from a museum or just a website that has that Starry Night by Van Gogh painting? Can you not upload it to the website yourself? You're just not asking AI to do it?
Yeah, nothing would stop you from doing that. Just like a regular digital picture frame, you can upload copyrighted images, and it's hard for us to stop that. So, yeah.
Awesome. And then finally, Anthony, how much do the Fraimic e-ink smart canvases start at? Again, there's two sizes, and how can we pre-order them?
Yeah, so we are only accepting pre-orders right now via our website, which is fraimic.com, Fraimic.com. Our standard size, which is the 14 by 18 inch, is available for $399 USD, and our large, our 24 by 36, is $999 USD. If you pre-order now, they will be shipping in May of this year.
And a lot more affordable than I was anticipating. Fraimic.com, Fraimic. Anthony, thank you so much for your time, and wishing you all the best with the Fraimic lineup coming this spring. Thanks again.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, Mark.
I wasn't able to play the entire interview, but my last question was, what do artists think about this? Are they threatened? Do they hate this idea? Anthony from Fraimic basically said there's room for everyone. So just like photography didn't replace painters, which was the fear when photography became mainstream, that painters were saying, hey, this is what we're paid to do. Both coexist. And Fraimic says that they also have a program coming out where they have art collections and they give proceeds to the artists. Thank you for tuning in to Tech It Out, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the show. A huge thank you to both Visa and Norton, as well as a special shout out to SanDisk. I always recommend SanDisk flash drives, like their solid state drives and micro SD cards and USB thumb drives, because they're so reliable. Offline storage, you don't have to pay a monthly subscription fee for it. High capacity, low cost, and there's always sales at sandisk.com. So be sure to check out their lineup at sandisk.com. Yeah, I do use the cloud as well, but nothing like having a physical offline copy of your important data to put away in a safe place like a safety deposit box. Super important. Once again, that's sandisk.com. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. Stay warm out there if it's still cold where you're based, as it is here. And I look forward to catching up with you next weekend for another brand new episode of Tech It Out. Bye-bye for now.